Welcome to the fifth day and our wrap up of the special coverage of the IMF World Bank 2025 annual meetings. Hi, I'm Kemi Oshukoya at the IMF and World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C. As you guys know, we've been here throughout this week bringing you highlights and exclusive interviews with government official finance ministers as well as director general and AU representatives that have traveled from across the African continent. We've been bringing you highlights from press conferences that we've attended, including the G20. So our focus today, as we wrap up these week-long activities here in Washington, D.C., is on our focus is what happened, some of the takeaway, some of the highlights from today. Today's event kicked off at 9 a.m. this morning with the Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, and the World Bank President joint planetary speech to the attendees at this event. That event was followed by the IMFC board meeting, and then afterward there was a press conference. There are several events as well and press conferences, including the regional economic outlook for Europe and the economic outlook for the Western Hemisphere as well. There was also a press conference by the African finance ministers that we also were able to attend. We attended that event and were able to pose a question to the finance minister regarding how they are working on their fiscal and trade policy to make sure that they integrate with and support the African continental free trade areas that is currently being implemented. We also had a chance following the IMFC board meeting. We had an exclusive, we had a chance, and we really thank the WTO, the World Trade Organization Director General, Ms. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who was the former finance minister of Nigeria, for speaking with us for that exclusive interview. We asked her regarding trade with Africa. From our conversation to us, she told us that she's very optimistic. She is optimistic about the African continent, and she will want leaders across the continent to work on integrating regional trade. She said African nations, African economics often trade with other nations, and trade within the continent is a lot harder. Our remarks actually, our response to our question echo when we attended the managing director, the IMFC press conference, the Ms. Georgieva, as well as the Saudi finance minister, who is the board chair of the IMFC, also echo what the World Trade Organization Director General, Ms. Okonjo-Iweala, told us. At the African finance minister press conference, I had a chance to post a similar question to the finance minister on what they are doing regarding how they are working on their fiscal as well as trade policy to help integrate and support industrialization on the continent across border. Here are some of the highlights from today's event. Before we leave, I just want to thank all of our audience across the world from the African continent. I also want to thank all the finance ministers, the WTO Director General, the African Union representative, and all finance ministers that spoke to us throughout this week, that continue with their comments to support and engage with us so our audience can get a sense of what is going on during this meeting. So as we wrap up, a big thank you also to our audience, as I said, across the continent and across the world, for continuing to watch us and continue to support us. Here are the highlights from today as we wrap up this week-long event at the 2025 IMF World Bank Annual Meeting. Again, I am Kemi Oshikoya, reporting from Washington DC. It's been a long week, but we are very, very happy to do it. Thank you very much for watching. Hi, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. Good afternoon, man. Good afternoon. How are you? Okay. So how was the meeting? Very good. Very good. Yeah, do you feel like Africa agenda is being addressed, especially regarding the trade?
Yes, we are trying our best, but the trade issues are complex. But for Africa, we need to focus on how to integrate better, reduce our trade costs, integrate better into the world trading system, and get more value added to our products. We have what it takes. We just need to shift gears so we can produce more value and sell more. Okay, but I'm optimistic.
You are very optimistic. Thank you very much, man.
Optimistic.
You are optimistic. Thank you.
Countries in Africa and with regional organizations to identify ways in which economies can be strengthened. And I want to point to three very important areas of action. First, doing more domestically to improve governance, trust in institutions, and create better conditions for private sector to function, deliver jobs, deliver opportunities. There is a lot that can be done in that regard. Second, concentrate efforts on the public budgets to increase revenues in all countries. In all countries, there is space to reduce tax evasion, to bring more of the economy in the formal side, in the formal sector, to improve tax collection. And far too many countries are still quite low in tax to GDP. Our advice is tax to GDP has to be at least 15%. If you want to have the ability to stimulate, to provide services and stimulate the economy. And the third is the most important at this time in the context of the question you asked, trade more with each other. The continental free trade area is something that should not be an aspiration, it should be turning into reality. In regional, sub-regional settings, there are plenty of tariff, non-tariff barriers and logistical barriers for countries to trade more with each other, to trade more with the Gulf, to trade more with other parts of the world. It should not be the case to have to take a lot of goods and go to Europe to be able to deliver that same lot of goods somewhere else in Africa. So that these are important moments for Africa to turn challenge into an opportunity and to get I mean, we just to give you this, we calculate that the benefits of regional trade integration can be up to 10% of income per capita in Africa. So I hope that the uncertainty and the anxiety will turn into, okay, there is plenty we can do, we haven't done it so far, now is the time.
In addition to what the IMF is doing, a great job that they're providing, I think we should remember there are two pillars of the Bretton Woods institution.
Yes.
And I think the World Bank and the IMF has never worked better than now. I mean, they collaborate, they work together, they exchange information, and particularly in relation to Europe, you could see the significant work that is being done by the World Bank in supporting the poorer countries in Africa, and complementing that with the great work that the IMF is doing. So personally, I am a governor of both, and I take them as a one package to help individual countries and regions. Countries, including advanced economies, does not have, which is human capital.
Yes.
I think human capital is as important for AI as energy. So we should not underestimate. If you have that, you don't need the data centers in your country.
Yeah.
You could tap data centers wherever they are. It's the human capital, and I think Africa and a lot of the low-income countries have what it takes. If they just focus on recalibrating their education system, I think they will be there.
Particularly from overseas development assistance is shrinking and the demands are rising, you have to look inward. And the only way to do that is through domestic resource mobilization. In the case of the Gambia, we have leveraged this from a number of fronts. We commenced with reforms. Our tax policies, we started this in 2022 when we created a dedicated tax directorate with the Ministry of Finance to focus on the policy aspect of the taxation, to make sure that whatever tax belongs to government is collected. And we're guided by numbers here, because what we do is to make sure that our policies are data-driven. If you look at the tax revenue to GDP for OECD countries, which are the benefactor countries that lend to institutions to support us, is about 35%. For sub-Saharan Africa, it's about 16%. And in Gambia, as of 2022, this was about 9%. So with the reforms in terms of the structure and the policy, and we follow this through with the digitalization. We digitalized our custom procedures. We have also digitalized the revenue collection. Today in the Gambia, most revenue collection activities of the government are not paid through cashiers. We have closed all cashier positions. All payments are made through banks or financial institutions directly. With this digitalization, we have realized that from 2022, tax revenue collected was about 11 billion. By 2025, this is expected to be about 25 billion, more than 100% in 3 years. So these are the measures we've taken, and we are not resting on our laurels. We are further going downstream to introduce the taxation of the domestic taxes, particularly pay-as-you-earn corporation tax. And as of last month, we've signed a digital with a contract to digitalize the taxes that are related to corporation tax, pay-as-you-earn, and income tax. Trade transcends beyond economics, because the number one reason for enhancing trade, it's not just for financial reasons. As we say in Africa, if you trade with your neighbors, you don't fight, because your economic interests are aligned. But coming back to its alignment with the fiscal policy, is the fiscal policies are designed in such a way that it will facilitate free flow of trade. Because trade, in terms of the fiscal aspect, should not be price driven, but should be volume driven. That is why Africa as a continent went into this African Continental Free Trade Area, to boost regional trade within the African continent. This will enhance the global economic development of the continent as a bloc, and also it will tear down barriers. If we look at the United States, it is not United States in one piece. it was isolated states in the past. You look at the EU, similarly. The most important element of all of this is the economic interest aligned through trade. So Africa is now on the foundational stage of implementing the Continental African AfCFTA. This we believe will boost the African economies by a quadruple of percentages. And not only that, it will facilitate the free movement of goods and services. I think it's high time, as African countries, we trade among ourselves more so that our people will have enhanced quality of life. It's a pity. If you're crossing any African border, you will see queues of lorries where trade barriers are there, not facilitating the full movement of goods. On the other hand, if you take a same journey in Europe, you can go from Luxembourg to any part of Europe or Germany, France, without noticing that you are crossing the border. And the volume of goods that are transacted in Europe far exceeds what's in Africa. So we need to enhance trade by taking the bold initiative through political efforts to ensure that we break down the barriers and trade among ourselves more. That way, the volume of economic activity will increase, and definitely by derivative, the associated tax revenues that will follow. And not only both the trade and the tax, but people, once they interact more, their interests become more aligned, it fosters more peace and prosperity. And also, more importantly, Africa's societal problem of war and famine is nothing but economics. And trade is the foundation of economic development. So this is taken very seriously. Even in ECOWAS, we have the ECOWAS protocol of free movement of goods and services within the ECOWAS bloc. And goods manufactured and made in ECOWAS are allowed to freely be traded without any duties using the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme. So the two are very integral and they are central to economic development. I hope I do answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you
Very much. We will try to have short answers in order, no problem, Minister. But we try to have short answers to take another range of questions before we had only 8 minutes remaining.
D'accord. Merci Madame. C'est allant dans le sens de cette question d'intégration. L'intégration en elle-même, elle doit être multidimensionnelle pour nos États. Multidimensionnelle parce qu'elle doit être une intégration par les transactions commerciales, une intégration par les interconnexions énergétiques, une intégration par l'accès aux infrastructures routières. Ça, c'est une vision collégiale et commune dans le sens de la zone de libre-échange que nous appelons les CAF. Il faut des intégrations de façon sous-régionale qui va permettre à l'ensemble du continent d'aller dans ce que nous appelons la debt integration, donc une intégration plus profonde qui va générer l'intégration politique, qui va générer l'intégration économique et l'intégration monétaire. Ceci étant, la Guinée est un pays qui partage la frontière avec 6 pays. 6 pays donc du sud à l'est, en passant par l'ouest, avec lesquels pays la Guinée commerce, et l'intensité des activités est de telle manière que ça crée des vraies valeurs ajoutées, ça crée un agencement d'activités qui permet à nos économies de se développer de façon interactive. Et donc, nous devons aller vers la zone de libre-échange qui va être déterminante pour la suite. Les conséquences seront là en termes d'élimination des barrières tarifaires. Et donc, la compensation de cette barrière tarifaire se fera au niveau de la fiscalité interne. Donc, nous devons promouvoir à date une intégration réussie sur l'ensemble des segments des politiques publiques, télécommunications, infrastructures routières et énergétiques. À ce point, je peux donner l'exemple du cas guinéen. Nous, quand nous sommes en période de faible niveau d'électricité, on est à même de faire une demande au Sénégal. le Sénégal nous fournit. Quand nous avions des excédents, nous vendons à la Guinée-Bissau. Ça, c'est des éléments d'intégration qui sont factuels et qui vont interconnecter nos économies et développer vraiment une infrastructure digne du nom pour une croissance économique. Je vous remercie.
Monsieur le ministre Abouraz, j'aimerais très rapidement vous adresser la question qui a été posée sur